All right. Hello and welcome in, everybody. Today we have a very exciting episode for you guys. We're going to be doing our very first mock draft. And with us, we have a special guest, our cousin Andrew Cook. It's going to be exciting today. We haven't been able to do one of these mocks with you guys yet, but we are excited to kind of walk you through our thoughts and our picks as we go along. We are the Titans of Fantasy Football Podcast, and I am your host, Garrett Daigle. My co-host, Caleb Armstrong. How's everybody doing today?
Oh, doing pretty well. How about you, Garrett?
Doing good.
Fired up.
Andrew, you ready to get into here? See what it's all about?
Oh yeah. I've been in league with Garrett and Caleb here for a number of years now. Love what they put together on the podcast here, so just excited to be able to get in here and do a mock with them.
Yeah, and I just want to put this out here, guys. The reason we brought Andrew in today for the episode is Andrew's kind of a guru when it comes to fantasy. He's the only two-time champ in our family league, which has been going for more than 10 years. So round of applause to him there. And it seems like he is the waiver / very good drafter. So that's why we brought him in here, because he's a waiver hunter, but he also gets some good picks laid on. So that's why we kind of wanted his input, kind of get some guys. It helps us, we get some feelers for what he's going to go for this year. So it's kind of a big thing here, but
put me on the spot.
Yeah. Before we get too far into the mock draft here, we are just going to give you guys a little bit some fantasy news going around the league. Garrett, I know you got a couple things you want to touch on here. I'll let you go first on that. So,
so a couple things we have. One of them is James Robinson. We've kind of been hearing some conflicting reports around camp. First, we got a report 2 days ago saying, he might not be ready for camp. Now we get a new report today that he's expected to be ready for camp. So if that is the case, then maybe cool down your jets a little bit on the ETN takes, myself included, and just get ready for him to be back, because he has been a workhorse powerhouse back. And if he is ready for the start, that's going to be an exciting player that you can kind of slot in maybe to your late or mid rounds of your drafts. It's going to be interesting to see where his ADP kind of washes out once things get closer to the season actually starting.
Kind of some other conflicting your report with that too is, just recently came up from the office and said there too that they expect ETN to kind of have a Deebo Samuel role. And if that's true, I mean, we saw what Deebo put up for numbers last year, and Deebo had I think 8 touchdowns on the ground or something like that. So it's kind of weird right now. We'll see. James Robinson, of course, Achilles injury. That kind of seems like it's always a doomsday for these running backs, besides Cam Akers, who had this bounce back right away. And I know we talked about it in a previous episode here, but the only guy who really has come back strong has been Devonta Foreman, and that took 2 years. And we didn't see anything till last year because he was given a chance. So, I mean, it's kind of just a thing to look out for. Another big piece of news here is, I honestly didn't see it coming. I kind of, was like, is it going to happen or not? Rob Gronkowski officially retired. And that is big, because I'm sure a lot of these guys who are either dynasty holders or already done the redrafts, you went out and you grabbed Gronk, because when he plays, he's a top 10 tight end. Has been for years. Just question here, guys. What do you think? Where would you put Gronk on your all-time tight end list? Is he number 1? Would you give him that spot?
That's tough. That's tough. He's top 3. Obviously, you got to give it to your guys like Gonzalez, and now Kelsey's even cementing himself as one of the top tight ends of all time. I think the body of work that Kelsey has the last 6 years says a lot, but Gronk, throughout the seasons, he was just a bona fide number 1 all time. Every single season he was active. It's crazy. You watch teams try to scheme against him, and there was nothing they could do to shut that powerhouse down. All-time great. He'll be a Hall of Famer. We're excited for him to, finally step into his next chapter of his crazy Gronk life. We'll see what he does, but I kind of figured the same thing. I thought he'd be back for another season after coming back. He showed that he still had it last year. Maybe in 2 years we'll see him back in the field again.
That'd be kind of interesting, that's for sure. there's a couple little pieces of news here. Deshaun Watson settled 20 out of 24 cases so far, so it's kind of big news. But then also Adam Schefter came out right after and said that's not going to play any factor into the suspension coming his way. So obviously there's been nothing yet for his actual suspension, but it sounds like it's going to be a hefty one, especially seeing something like what Calvin Ridley got for a $1,500 gambling thing. So, I mean, I assume Watson gets a suspension, but we'll just see how that all goes falls apart here. And the last little bit of piece here that I got for you guys before we get into this mock draft is some little more camp news, and it's kind of two conflict reports here. Once again, the Texans came out and said we're going to lean heavy on Marlon Mack, who we know also is recovering from an Achilles injury 2 years ago, and last year had the lowest yards per carry in his career. Yes, he was behind Jonathan Taylor. Didn't get many touches, but it was still pitiful. I think it was like 2.7 yards per carry, which is not good. So we'll see if that's actually true. And then right after it, another report comes out and says Dameon Pierce expected to take over lead back role by end of season. So it's like, okay, are they trying to play a cat and mouse game here with us or what? So just kind of something to look forward to here. If you're going after Pierce in your rookie drafts or in your redraft leagues, I'd recommend grabbing both because right now it's kind of like don't know who's going to win it type deal. So we'll see obviously when camp comes around more and later on in the year when preseason comes around, see how they look. But for right now, it's just kind of something to look an eye out for. And with that, if you guys don't have anything else to get at here, we'll probably hop right into the mock. We did random positionings for spots. I ended up with number 1, so I'm going to have to pick one. Garrett, he's got 7, and Andrew has the turn. And in last week's episode, we kind of talked, it kind of covers perfectly. We talked about early drafting and late drafting. So we'll see how Andrew and I do with our strategies here and see what we're going with. But with that all being said, go ahead, Garrett.
It's kind of funny, too, considering, these last week, the draft strategies, this was totally random. And we're kind of spread out, beginning, middle, and end. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see how the different rosters shape out between the three of us. And yeah, I'll let you take it away from there, Mister
Right.
1 overall.
So before we get started here, guys, one more thing too is what we're going to do is I'll start the draft and we'll kind of pause throughout and we'll kind of explain how we're feeling. We got most of it on auto pick, so the computer will be picking for most of it besides us. So it'll be going relatively fast, but we have 2 minutes a piece to pick our guy, and we'll kind of just give some brief description on why we think so. So starting the draft right away. So draft is started here, and with that, I have the first pick, and I kind of think, you guys can probably agree. I feel like the first pick is pretty simple right now. Like usually there's like a kind of like toss up between 1 and 2, and for me, I gotta go Jonathan Taylor. He's just such a solid guy after last year. So definitely something to look at there for sure, but it's just kind of an easy pick to me. I don't know what you guys think, but
yeah. And one thing here too also is that this is a 12-team full PPR. So even though Caleb did take Taylor there, in my mind, I think Kupp is worth a little bit of consideration just because it is full PPR. But yeah, can't really go wrong with a guy like Jonathan Taylor locking down that RB1.
Yeah, and just getting everybody else caught up here. Then right after the board came McCaffrey, Cooper Kupp, first wide receiver off the board, Henry, Cook, and Eckler. So now you're on the board here, Garrett. And do you have your muted on your computer, Garrett? I was getting a little feedback there. I don't know if that was from your computer or not.
I just turned off the sounds for the draft. I was getting
okay, sounds good. Yeah, I did the same. So I'll resume the draft here, Garrett. I'll let you make your pick. So
yeah, so looking at this, I think one thing, just off the board, we have our other top receivers here. I like the way that my teams have been shaping out. If I do draft a wide receiver early, Harris, I still feel pretty good about grabbing him. I think his volume, his workload, he's going to get those dump off passes. I love Swift this year. Probably a little too rich for where he's at or where I'm at in the draft. But really what I want to do is I want to lock down one of these receivers. I think Jefferson's going to have more catches, but Chase might be a little bit more of a big play guy. Adams not quite up here in the same tier as those guys for me. So I'm going to go with Jefferson.
Alrighty. Then came after that was Harris, Chase, Mixon, and Swift. So, Andrew, you're on the board now, and what are you thinking here? What are you feeling?
Sounds good. So I kind of find myself here. It looks like the top wave of RBs has kind of been taken. So that's a little bit of a downer for me. But there are plenty of top tier receivers here still. I think I'm going to start off here. I'm looking between Devonta Adams and Stephon Diggs. Just to start off, kind of between those two guys. I think that Devonta Adams may have the higher upside, but Stephon Diggs tends to play more games every season, and Devonta Adams is kind of going into a new scenario. It is a good scenario. Derek Carr is a good quarterback, but I like the stability of Stephon Diggs. Plays a lot of games, is great year in, year out, so I'm going to go with him first.
I like that pick. Kind of, if you remember that last episode, we kind of talked about values, and I said Jamison Crowder. And with the Buffalo Bills, there's a lot of vacant targets right now. Cole Beasley's gone, Emmanuel Sanders. And, I'm not really believing all the Gabe Davis hype. So I still think Stephon Diggs is a very safe pick. I like your pick there. So you're on the turn. So let's see.
Even if you do like Davis, I think Diggs is still going to end up being the volume guy. So he's going to remain in that role.
I would agree. So, Andrew, on the turn here, I'll restart the again and let you kind of talk.
So now that I'm at the end, I don't know. I kind of feel if I wait on an RB here, I'm going to be left with not very good options here. So while I think I might potentially like Adams for my more here, I think that I'm going to have to go with Nick Chubb here just to make sure that I have some depth at RB once it comes back around to me here. And I will say Travis Kelce is also available here, but I don't love that pick here. I think there's a lot better value at tight end, especially at this position. So I'm going to go with Nick Chubb.
Gotcha. I think that's a good pick. And Adams, Kamara, and Kelce, and Hill. So Garrett, you're back on the clock here, and I think you were really hoping Kelce was coming to you here. Just look based off your mock drafts from the previous episode talking about value or the strategies. I think you were really hoping Kelce would come back around. Am I wrong there, or?
Yeah, I was hoping Kelce would make it back to me. I do think he right now is my number one tight end. Being the last remaining guy kind of in Kansas City, he's going to see a lot of volume. That being said, I still do like Andrews quite a bit. Deebo Samuel last year, his usage was crazy. We've seen a lot of reports talking about scaling him back. Javonte Williams, I really like going into the year. Honestly, right now, where I'm kind of at is, I have some good options for running backs that I actually like. I don't think Barkley or Williams are going to be those guys. I think Barkley just has too much risk. Williams is going to share the load. I do like Aaron Jones and Leonard Fournette, even though they are ranked quite a bit further down the line. But in my mind, a guy I really think is going to be a difference maker this year is CeeDee Lamb. And I'm going to lock him in and go wide receiver off the start here. And the big reason is that I think CeeDee Lamb could end up it is foreseeable that he could end up leading the league both in yards and possibly in catches. We watched Amari Cooper leave that offense, and Dak has been playing really good football the last few years. Lamb could see that huge level up that we think is possible for him. So I get two guys from the same draft, two young third-year receivers, and I have my receiver position locked down for a full team or a full PPR league, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. That's a good thing to have. And then right after the board, right after you was Deebo Samuel, who you kind of were talking about there. And we got some quarterbacks coming off the board. We got Allen, Andrews, Aaron Jones, and then Patrick Mahomes again. And so I was really hoping Mark Andrews would come back around to me here. I did have a feeling, his ADP has been a little higher, but I was just hoping. And, seeing the two quarterbacks early, kind of going with that quarterback early draft strategy. And I was going to wait. I really don't. I'm okay with waiting for a little bit for a quarterback here. So I am going to restart the draft here. And I got my guys. I got the turn. So I got the 2-12, the 3-1 turn. I'm going to be hitting some guys I like here a little bit farther down, actually. And with that being said, the first guy I'm going with is Mike Evans. And the reason I chose Mike Evans is I feel like this is the year where Mike Evans could potentially being kind of a dark horse sleeper for that wide receiver one role. Chris Godwin out for the first, we would think in our 6 weeks, he'd probably end up on the PUP list right away. And we've seen Evans in the past, just 1,000-yard receiving just every year. And now, no Rob Gronkowski, he's going to be even more of a red zone threat in my mind. So I kind of feel safe there, grabbing Mike Evans as my wide receiver one. And then I'm kind of in that range too, Garrett. You mentioned Saquon, Javonte. Yes, they would be good RB2s for me. A.J. Brown, I'm not really too high on right now. I feel like he's a little bit higher than DCER and stuff like that. And I just don't think there's going to be too great of opportunities there with him in the Eagles offense. But I kind of like Leonard Fournette. And then I do like Kyle Pitts as well there. But I'm thinking I'm going to go with a little bit of a reach here. And this might be surprising to some. But I'm actually going to go with T. Higgins. And the reason being is at the end of last year, T. Higgins, at the last 6 weeks, was averaging more targets a game than Jamar Chase. And if you remember the playoffs, he was also very, very well utilized. And that offense is easily able to support 2 top 20 wide receivers. And that's the way I feel kind of with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. And I feel like either one of them are safe guys to have in your roster. So that's kind of why. And I got my lockdown running back with Jonathan Taylor right away. So I felt like that's an okay pick for me to do. So, and after the board was Williams, Barkley, Fournette, Pitts, A.J. Brown. And now back to you, Garrett, here. So
with the draft coming back to me, I have my 2 top dog receivers kind of locked in. What I would have liked to have done is I was hoping that, potentially one of Barkley, Williams, or Fournette would have came back to me. Those 3 guys I think are a little bit more of a tier up from this next group. Elliott, the reports that we've been hearing out of camp is that, he has been looking good, looking fresh. His knee is healthy. I do like James Conner here. I think that his last year, even though that he had that massive touchdown volume, he's probably going to scale back a little bit. I'm kind of in a tough spot, but I think what I want to do is just go with Elliott. I do think that he will bounce back this season. It is a little bit of a risk, and I don't love doubling down on both Lamb and Elliott from the same offense this early in the draft. But in my mind, those guys were a little bit, or Elliott was a higher step up in a different tier than some of the rest of these running backs that are out there. And I don't want to get caught not having, the next, or waiting too long on my running backs to where I'm really stuck starting 2 guys that are in a step down. It would be kind of rough.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I think Zeke, I feel like people kind of have that fantasy fatigue though with Zeke too. I mean, he's been a top guy for so long, and even last year he was still I think it was like RB2 for the most part, and he dealt with some injuries last year. The Cowboys offense kind of just seems slow at times too, but I think that's going to be a high-powered offense. So regardless, and he's going to get his touches, and it sounds like they're moving Pollard up to the slot a little more, so that. Honestly, everybody worries about Tony Pollard because he's such a good running back. Tony Pollard is. If he could be a RB1 on most teams, it seems like. But I feel like that's going to get more use for Pollard out there, where Zeke is still going to get them touches. I think we're going to see a lot of both of them guys out on the field at the same time this year coming into the season. But I'm just getting everybody caught up here. Then it was Gibson, Keenan Allen, Cam Akers, George Kittle. And now your turn, Andrew. You're back on the clock, back on that turn. And who are you feeling?
Yeah. So Garrett kind of touched on it a little bit here. I really like James Conner here. And you guys talked about it in a previous episode as well. There's just not a lot of competition for him there. Daryl Williams, Benjamin. I like his chances here to get a lot of touches this upcoming year. And, the touchdowns will regress, but it's hard to argue with RB1 usage there. So I'm going to go ahead and start with James Conner.
Okay.
And so now is between here to continue and draft another receiver here and kind of round out my receivers and running backs here, or Justin Herbert's also available. So I could nab a top tier QB here. And so right now, me personally, I'm not big on Deontay Johnson here. There's a lot more mouths to feed there, a new QB situation. Same with DK Metcalf. The wide receiver I'm thinking about here potentially is Terry McLaurin. Carson Wentz isn't a top tier QB by any means, but he airs the ball out a little bit more than some of their QBs in the past, and I'm a big fan of Terry McLaurin. So if I were going to go with wide receiver, I would go with him, but I just cannot pass on Justin Herbert here. He's a stud, been a stud for a long time here, so I'm going to go ahead and go with him.
All righty, then David Montgomery, Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson, Josh Jacobs. And now back to you, Garrett. I was kind of shocked to see Jacobs go that high, over a couple of other guys. But hey, I think he's a safe pick. I truthfully like looking at Team 8 there. They got Najee Harris, Tyreek Hill, Antonio Gibson, and Josh Jacobs. Gibbs, I don't know about how you guys feel about Gibson right now, but I'm just not a fan. I've heard stuff about how it's probably going to be an RBC, and that scares me because we've seen Gibson's role, it seems like, just diminish ever since his rookie year. It's like gotten worse and worse, and now they got Brian Robinson there, who's a big back, and I feel like he could hawk some of his touchdowns.
Yeah, I'm not loving how his team is shaking up. He's got Harris, Hill in a new offense, Gibson, who had kind of an up and down, and Jacobs, who had kind of an up and down season last year. A little scary. But I was actually hoping David Montgomery would come back to me. I was kind of crossing my fingers because his volume would have been something that I was chasing here in the fourth round. I think I have picked 42 overall. Right now, I like some of the running backs off the board. Hall here is enticing. I think he could end up stealing that workload. Trouble is the Jets had the least amount of rushes in the league last year. Even though I love drafting the top rookie running backs in drafts. I think I'm kind of notorious in some of my leagues for it. I like Dobbins, but his return from injury is a little bit of a question mark right now. Looking further down the board, ETN I've been keyed in on, and now we have some more information about Robinson potentially being ready for the start of the season, potentially not. But looking back at this, I am going to take a little bit of a risk here, and this is what doing mock drafts is all about. I'm going to go and I'm going to lock down DK Metcalf. He has a little bit of a question mark at QB out there, but where he's falling into drafts now, he's getting to the point where, this new Seattle offense, we're going to see some opportunity for him to kind of be the sole guy on the outside. Lockett's still there, but we're going to find out, this offense, they're going to have to play from behind, most likely. So we're going to have to see what happens there. Metcalf, where he's falling as my wide receiver 3, I'm pretty excited about that, even though the situation's a little bit different without Russ.
So, I think that was a value pick, Garrett. You kind of had to do it. Your wide receiver room. I still think DK is going to put up top 20 numbers. I just don't see that not happening. He's such a big guy, and he's done it ever since the league. Drew Lock, we've seen. Kind of.
We've seen a rough go with Drew Lock. DK, I'm also kind of taking a risk here with having waited so long on my second running back and Elliott having kind of a rough season. That being said, I know that most weeks I'm probably going to have a leg up on most receiving cores on other teams that I'm playing. And it is a little bit of a risk, but we'll see what happens when this mock comes back around. And then, maybe come future drafts, I'll be able to, judge off of this and say, hey, that actually worked out. I was able to get some running backs that I liked later on. Or I'll be able to say, it was a risk and I don't like the way my team shaped up. But yeah, I'm going to stick with this one right now. And I feel pretty good about Metcalf as my number 3.
So, all right, I'm back on the clock here. And I'm pumped. When Garrett was talking about Breece Hall, I was sitting there crossing my fingers. I was like, no, let him fall to me. And seeing him now as my potential RB2, that's who I'm going to go with right away here is Breece Hall. And so let me grab him quickly. And then after that, though, I was looking, I'm like, okay, I got two good wide receivers. I have, a stud RB1, and, if he gets the workload that we're kind of hearing, he's going to get a very high floor, I would say, RB2. And, but now I'm kind of looking, I'm like, okay, I don't have a quarterback and I don't have a tight end yet. And just looking around here, I got Joe Burr, I got Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, Dak Prescott as the top quarterbacks, and then tight ends are Hawkinson and Schultz. And I kind of touched on this in my strategies last week. The top 5 tight ends are gone, and I don't feel comfortable right here taking one of these other tight ends yet, even though their ADP is right around there. I feel like I can get somebody a little better later on for my team-wise. And so with that being said, I'm probably going to grab another wide receiver here. To be honest, I really don't like grabbing one of these quarterbacks super early, and because now that the big guys are gone as well for the quarterback. I liked Lamar. I was hoping I could grab him at the turn here too, but I'm probably gonna go wide receiver, and I'm gonna be buying upside here, and I think I'm gonna go with Michael Pittman, and I feel really comfortable having him be my wide receiver 3. I think he can put up wide receiver 1 numbers, especially now with Matt Ryan being his quarterback.
Caleb, I think we all remember that stretch he had last year where he was lighting it. Hard to forget that. So I like the pick Pittman. I think he's going to continue to develop a ton of competition. So yeah, I love that pick.
All right.
Yeah, Caleb, I like the way you balance it out there, especially knowing that you're at the start of the draft. You started with Taylor. You were able to grab Hall. Now you have 2 running backs, 3 receivers, and for a full PPR, you have Evans, Higgins, and Pittman as your 1, 2, 3. That's arguably just as strong as anybody out there.
Yeah. And just getting you guys caught up here, now we have Jerry Judy, which kind of a little bit of a reach there. I feel like, maybe not. We don't know. We haven't heard much about him yet in camp. Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, and Joe Burr. And so puts you back on the clock here.
So if anyone's watching on video here, as the draft unfolded, you just saw me do some arm raises and fist bumps because last round I had ETN in consideration, and I decided to pass on him. Now, coming in the 5th and seeing him sitting there, I am jumping for joy because I think even if Robinson does come back, we know that Trevor Lawrence threw one of the most passes in the league last season. ETN has been touted as the slot guy, pass catching back, potential great option for him, especially knowing that he came out of Clemson with Lawrence. We know they have a little bit of rapport there already, and I need a running back. Some of the other options for running back on the board right now, Elijah Mitchell, which that 49ers running back room is always a little muddy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As we look at these guys, they're a little bit further down the draft. I'm not ready to pull the trigger on any of those guys, and I need to shore up my running back room before it gets too late. I love ETN here. I'm going to smash that pick.
All righty. I like that pick too. I mean, Cortland Sutton, Elijah Mitchell, Kyler Murray, and Kenneth Walker. Oof. I like Ken Walker. I like his potential. But like I said, I just saw something today, and it talked about how that kind of sounds like Penny's going to be the guy right away. And, it's early still. We're still in June here, so it's kind of early. Not really know how it's all going. But we saw Penny put together a stretch last year that was ridiculous. I mean, he was putting up RB1 numbers almost every week. He's one of the top, I think, 5 paid or top 10 highest paid running backs in the league right now. So I don't think they're just going to let him sit on the pine all year. But we also heard he's got a hamstring injury already. So that's
last week we talked about. Last week we talked about Walker being a value, but now in this draft, he's going much earlier than what we had for our ECR rank. ECR rank he was going in around pick 80. This is about a round or 2 ahead of that. And plus, hearing the news that Penny is expected to be early down, we kind of would have anticipated that. We'll see how things unfold, but full PPR too. Kenneth Walker is probably not a level up in PPR. He's more of a level down, considering the fact that, he's not expected, or they're not expected to pass it a whole bunch to their running backs like other teams might be. But that being said, Andrew is on the clock. We'll let you kind of walk us through.
Yeah, sounds good. So, personally, my draft strategy is to kind of build more of a balanced team. And as you look at my team here, I drafted Stephon Diggs in the first round, and since I've kind of gone with 2 RBs in my QB here, so my thought going into this pick is I need to get at least one receiver here. So kind of looking down the board for receivers here, I see Michael Thomas here, who haven't been good reports about him getting back from injury, and on top of the rest, just getting back from injury there. I don't love that pick there. I'm looking at Marquise Brown and Mike Williams, and I've been high on Hollywood Brown. I got him in our dynasty startup. I think he's going to be huge while D Hop is out, and I think he's going to mesh well with Kyler since they played together in college. I like the pick of Marquise Brown here, so I'm going to go ahead and start with him. So now I kind of got my 2 RBs, 2 receivers, a QB. I'm looking at potentially getting a tight end to round out a complete lineup to start with here. I see TJ Hawkinson and Dalton Schultz are right here, but I also like the prospects of Dallas Goedert and Dawson Knox, and I think it's possible that Dawson Knox could come back to me around the turn here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and try to wait on a tight end. And I think I'm going to play catch up on receiver here a little bit more. I kind of like the potential QB wide receiver duo of Mike Williams. He had his hot stretch last year. He's an awesome athlete. I know he's a wide receiver 2 on the Chargers offense, but he can get after it. We've seen that every year. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Mike Williams.
I like that pick a lot. We saw Mike Williams have a good stretch, like you said, last year. I think he was like wide receiver, Garrett, correct me if I'm wrong, like wide receiver like 5 through the first 6 weeks last year. And like you said, you got that stack now, and that's big. That's a good stack to have. And Keenan Allen's aging, so we're waiting for Keenan Allen to not be so consistent. I guess that's the kind of the right word. And Mike Williams would be the next guy in line, like you said. So I like that pick. Garrett?
Yeah, I like that double up on your end too, Andrew. That I think Brown could end up seeing a lot of targets early on, and Williams, like you said, he was explosive last year. If he can stay on the field, he's going to be a top receiver out there. So
yeah,
good back to back.
Just getting caught up. Then we had, sorry, Garrett, Damian Harris, Michael Thomas, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and DeAndre Hopkins.
So at my pick here, I was hoping that Clyde was coming back to me. I do think, even though they just brought back another running back to the offense, I still think he's going to get the number 1 shot at being the top back there. With vacated targets in that offense, he could be in a good position to have a little bit more of a dump off role, a security blanket if, Kelsey's more keyed in on by defenses. But he didn't make it to me. Team 9 swiped me. So I'm looking at where this draft is set up here, and I would have loved to take Dalton Schultz. I do think he is the top tight end on my board right now, but I am already doubled up with Lamb and Elliott for Dallas Cowboys on my offense, and I don't want to put too many eggs in one basket. I think the safest thing to do for me right now is to grab a running back just to balance out kind of where my picks are at. Elliott and ETN are a little bit of a risk, so I'd like to go with a safer floor running back here. Maybe A.J. Dillon, Miles Sanders. Those 2 guys are in consideration. Brandon Cooks is out there, though, and that's safe, top 24 receiver is staring me down. So I think that might be too good to be true. I'm going to try to see what running backs might come back to me around the turn. Tony Pollard, I can shore up my Elliott replacement just in case. Kareem Hunt. Dillon's at 70. I don't like the running back options that might come back around, though. And I think it's too big of a risk to wait, so I'm going to lock in A.J. Dillon.
All righty. I'll resume draft there. You got 10 seconds to make your pick, so there we go. So A.J. Dillon. Oh, there goes Brandon Cooks.
Oh.
No! And Dalton Schultz. So No, when you mentioned Brandon Cooks, I was like, because I know I talked about him 2 weeks ago on our last episode, or the Value podcast, and if I could have Brandon Cooks be my everyday flex, I would be ecstatic. I was sitting over here like, come on, please. And so seeing him go off the board, and then Dalton Schultz is heartbreaking because I was hoping I could grab Schultz. I kind of talked about the strategy last week. He is my, that last little bit of that top tier to me. And I was really hoping to get him in that 6 here. That's where I feel comfortable drafting him. But now I'm kind of panicking because I was like, those were the top 2 guys on my list that I was kind of looking at. And kind of like talking about how Andrew said about balancing. Right now I have, 2 good running backs and 3 wide receivers. I still am looking for my tight end and my quarterback. And so I'm going to go down the board just a little bit here on quarterbacks, and I'm going to grab a stack, and I'm going to go Tom Brady. And I know he's old, but this is redraft, and Tom Brady finished as a QB2 last year. He throws the ball a lot. He's been putting up good numbers, but it always seems every year he slides down the board because he's old. When are we going to get over the fact that Tom Brady's just the GOAT, There's no doubt he just puts up good numbers every year. So I'm going Brady there. And then I'm looking at tight ends, and it's like Andrew touched base about Dallas Goedert and Dawson Knox. I don't feel comfortable, like Andrew was saying about Knox, like where he was talking about grabbing him at the end, like hoping he comes back. That would be a good value. I think it's too early here, and there's too many guys I still like on the board at the running back and wide receiver room. So, looking at the wide receiver room, you got Kareem Hunt and Cordell Patterson as the top 2 guys. Patterson's got that dual capability, which is big. You can start him at the running back and wide receiver. And for the majority of the season last year, he was a top 10 running back, like RB6, I think it was, to like week 10 or 11. And yes, he's 31 years old, but the guy still, he hasn't had a lot of tread on his tires. He hasn't had to run a whole lot. But I'm probably going to dip into the wide receiver room again, get a solid flex guy and a guy I really, really like this year, and that's Darnell Mooney. And I just feel like there is no competition for him in that room right now. And he is going to get targets. He's going to get the ball. And I feel really, really good having him as my flex spot. So I'm grabbing Mooney there and go. I feel good about that. But then after that was Traylon Burks, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts, Drake London, Juju Smith-Schuster. And back to you, Garrett. So you got a very heavy room right now with 3 running backs and 3 wide receivers, Garrett. I'm kind of interested to see who you're dipping in for here.
Yes. So right now, I would have, Hertz would have been kind of in consideration there. I do think he has a good shot at finishing, like as good shot as anybody at being a lock for top 5 season. They added receivers to that room. He really is in a good position. That being said, we're kind of at the point where Andrew, like both of you guys brought it up. If you wait further on tight end, we're starting to get to the point where we're at the point of no return. If you wait much longer, you're going to have to start scraping from the bottom. And it's either you get one early or you get a couple late. Goddard, I feel Goddard's one of my hardest players to rank this season, and he's probably the one that's highest on the list right now. He's difficult because they went and added AJ Green. He could be. I expect Smith to level up this season, and Goddard could see touches. I just am not confident enough in the volume of passes from Hurts to where Goddard's going to get the ball enough. There are plenty of quarterbacks still out there. I really like Prescott, Wilson, Rodgers, Stafford. All those guys, have a lot of potential. And, there are several teams around the end of the draft that already have QBs, including Andrew and Team 10. So those guys, even if they all 3 grab quarterback, I'm still not going to be left holding the bag. So I'm going to wait till next round, no matter what, for QB. And looking at some other values around this position, the number one guy that stands out to me is Rashad Bateman, because he is the wide receiver that is in the position to dominate his team's targets. Caleb brought it up with Darnell Mooney. We have the exact same thing going on with Bateman here. He's the last man standing in Baltimore, and we saw a good season last year from Hollywood Brown. He finally stepped up, and we'll see what a healthy season from Lamar Jackson can do, and hopefully Bateman can return value there. But I think I'm going to go the late route with tight end and pick up Bateman as my wide receiver 4.
Alrighty, I'll restart the draft here. So Garrett grabs Bateman, and we have Thielen, Russell Wilson, Cordell Patterson, and Dak Prescott. So kind of what you're talking about here, Garrett. There goes 2 quarterbacks. You said though, if 3 get taken, you still got a guy you like. So I don't think Andrew's gonna go with a quarterback. I could be wrong. I don't know his whole strategy, but I feel like we're gonna see his Knox pick, like he was talking about.
Yep. So I'm here looking at the tight end room. I've had some time to think about it now since we've gone back through. So we see at the top for tight end, we got Goddard, Knox, and also Zach Ertz is here. Zach Ertz, I feel like, is kind of a sleeper pick here. There's a lot of targets available in the beginning of the year with DeAndre Hopkins gone. Chase Edmonds caught a lot of passes out of that backfield in the past too. So there's a lot of targets that are vacated there. So he's definitely in my consideration. So yeah, between Goddard, Knox, Ertz, I'm not huge on Goddard. With AJ Brown coming into the offense as well, more mouths to feed. So I'm really between Knox and Ertz here. We saw a hot stretch from Knox early on in the season. He broke his hand. He came back, was not as effective, but was still a pretty good tight end. Zach Ertz came into Arizona, produced right away, ended the season as a very good tight end. So I think I'm going to buy on Zach Ertz here. I like his ability to early on in the year when wins are the most important. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Zach Ertz.
I really like that one. I saw about, sorry, don't want to interrupt you on your pick, but Zach Ertz, just the fact that he is the only guy coming back besides AJ Green, who is, and Rondell Moore, but who's really comfortable and had a whole bunch of targets from Kyler Murray. And he was tight end 4 when he got traded over to Arizona last year. So that's pretty dang good. I like the pick. So
yeah. He really produced all last year. So excited to have him. So yeah, now looking back at my team here, I got 2 RBs, 3 wide receivers. So I'm pretty balanced here. I'm kind of between RBs and receivers here. So looking at Kareem Hunt in this area, Tony Pollard for running backs. Otherwise, there are some high upside receivers here as well. Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, who had that hot stretch last year. Not big on Tyler Lockett. So really between RBs, I think I'm bigger on Tony Pollard just because he's not only going to produce with Zeke there, but if Zeke ever went down, he's going to put up RB1 numbers. And I like before he had that hot stretch last year. Hard to argue with history. They do have a lot more mouths to feed now. So I think I'm going to go with the less risky option and potentially the higher upside and go with Tony Pollard here.
Plus, added bonus there is if Elliott is not up to par and he is hobbling into the season, I will be giving you calls for trades. Help me.
So after Pollard, we had Wilson, Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore, Kareem Hunt, and Dallas got kind of interesting to see Garrett Wilson go before Elijah Moore. To me that is anyways. They're both the same offense, but we've saw what Elijah Moore does, and he's a pretty good receiver. And he's got at least some chemistry with Zach Wilson, so that one kind of shocked me there. I thought that was a little bit of I feel like they both should go around the same area, but I feel like Moore should be the first one off the board.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there, Caleb, 100%.
Yep, I'm also on the same page. Even though Wilson was drafted very high in this draft, Moore showed enough last year to warrant a higher pick. Yeah. With that being said, we saw Ertz and Goddard. Goddard went one pick before me. And I've been staring down the draft. The only 2 teams in the whole draft that don't have a quarterback yet are me and Team 8. So that means that I do not have to pick a QB here because almost certainly both QBs that are left that I like, Rodgers and Stafford, will make it all the way back around to me. I think that means that I am going to end up going tight end here. I like guys like Renfro, upside in Gabe Davis. We talked about him. It depends on where he's going because I've seen him going 2 rounds higher than this at times, in the same range as Devonta Smith, Traylon, Juju, Brandon Cooks at times that high. So to see him down this far is a little bit different than some of the stuff I've been seeing elsewhere. So that's not too bad of a value where he could be all right.
No, I feel like this is
with
okay
those vacated targets, Knox could be the better dump off.
Yeah, I feel like this is okay spot for Gabe Davis. Like I said earlier, before the draft started, he's going anywhere from round 6 and above in a lot of these drafts, and this feels more the right area for him. You're buying a wide receiver 2 in a high-powered offense, so I feel like this is more of a safer option for him. But I'll restart the draft here, Garrett, and I'll let you take your pick. You got 30 seconds left. So.
Yeah, and I know I said I was going to wait on tight end, but honestly, I expected a couple of those guys to pop off the board. I guess with Kelsey, Waller, and Kittle going earlier, it's no surprise that Ertz and Goddard left one of those guys remaining, and I was okay there.
So next off the board, we had Edmund, Singletary, Renfro, Lockett, and Gabe Davis. And I'm okay with that. I wasn't really looking at any of these guys, truthfully, that came after your Knox pick there, so I'm okay with that. But now I'm looking at the fact is I don't have a tight end yet. I don't have an RB3. And that's kind of what I'm thinking here is with the turn is grabbing a tight end and grabbing an RB3. And so with that being said, looking at the tight ends, though, I feel like I'll be reaching kind of, Pat Freiermuth, he's going around end of the 10th round is kind of his ADP, and not really, or end of the 9th mainly for the ADP. And I feel like I could get him or another guy I'm looking at later on in the draft. And I'm kind of at that spot where, like I said, I'm not grabbing on these top tier tight ends, so I'm probably going to double dip. And I might as well just wait a little bit to do that because I feel like I can get guys lower that will have kind of the same output for ranges here. So I'm going to go with a running back right away, and I am going to go with a guy who is always consistent, and that's Melvin Gordon. And I feel safe having as my RB3. Yes, Javonte Williams, whatever we saw last year, but they were both able to have a plenty share in that offense and both be very fantasy relevant. So I feel like that's an okay spot for him here is for my RB3, end of the 8th, later picks. Not like I'm really hurt myself here, but I feel like that's an okay value for him there for a guy who could potentially be an RB2 type numbers, but be a fill-in for bye weeks and such. And that's what I'm kind of looking at this point is now I'm getting to the fact of guys who I feel like I can throw in on a weekly basis / on a bye week filler. So I got my quarterback. Like I said, I'm probably not going tight end because everybody basically has tight end already. So I feel like I can wait even to come back and grab one of those guys later on. So looking at it, I'm the only person without a tight end, like I said. Everybody else has a tight end on their roster. So I'm probably going to dip into that wide receiver again and just grab another guy who I think has high value and who I really like it to be as my wide receiver 5, who is a wide receiver 1 on their team and can put up good numbers, and that's Robert Woods. I just read today that they said he is going to be the wide receiver 1 for the year. So to start the year on their team. And so I feel like I think that's a good value for him down there.
I really like where he got Woods. Him being the number 1 on that team and being, the strongest vet presence they have at receiver. Tannehill's got to throw to somebody, and with AJ Brown being gone, Woods could be a great option.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. We've seen Woods produce throughout his career. I mean, he's coming off injury, but the man is fantasy relevant every year. I love where you got him there.
So, Garrett, you're back on the clock here. Are you going with your quarterback finally? Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Knock off the board. The guy as Team 5's quarterback 2, but I'm sure that's kind of just a value pick. He's got his 2 running backs. He's got a solid wide receiving core. Got his good tight end. So I feel like that's a value pick there. Kind of like, kind of use it as a trade bait or.
Well, and that, we were kind of getting into the territory where these quarterbacks are falling a little too far. It's just me and Team 8 that were left. That being said, if both of those guys would have fell back around to me, I might have been tempted to wait one more round.
Yeah.
And that's a slippery slope, but at the same time, I was hoping that James Cook would fall to me, and he went off one pick before my pick anyway. Yeah, I think his receiving upside is pretty good over in Buffalo. He has an opportunity to take away. Singletary's been there for a few years. He was strong down the stretch last season, but he's kind of been up and down. And we think they drafted Cook in the second round for a reason. He's going to see the field. You don't invest that type of draft capital without him being a strong part of your offense.
Yeah.
So he's a guy I really would like to see start moving up my draft boards. But that being said, I am going to stop the wait and take Mr. Matt Stafford. There are some other upside guys here. Watson just carries way too much risk right now with all of his stuff going on. Carr is going to be steady, but Stafford is the guy who, last year he showed he still got it.
So then we had Trey Lance, Rashad Penny, Michael Carter Jr., and Christian Watson. So, Andrew, puts you back on the clock here.
I just want to take a step aside. I can't believe Matt Stafford fell that far.
Yeah, I agree with you.
By Garrett there, getting Stafford.
Yeah, I think Stafford was like QB7 on the end of the year last year. So seeing him come off the board at like QB 10, 11, I think it's good value, especially in the ninth round. So the back end of the ninth round.
And we keep bringing this up, but this is the reason why you do mocks. And Andrew went and grabbed Herbert in round 4. We saw Burrow go round 5, Kyler Murray go round 5. It's like, I look at, there are so many quarterbacks I love this year that, I don't mind waiting till the last of that tier of top 12 receivers or quarterbacks. Like those QB1s, any of them have an argument to finish top 5. And if they can finish top 5, then that's steady enough to help your team win.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with you there.
I'll take the value.
We got about 50 seconds left here on the clock. Let me know if you need a pause.
Yeah. You're good. So I'm looking at my team here. I am well balanced. I have a starting lineup completely filled out. I got 3 RBs, 3 receivers right now. Completely balanced team. So now that I'm kind of going into some of my bench picks, I'm a guy at this part of the draft likes to take a little bit of risk on some higher upside guys. And I know you guys touched on this guy in a previous episode, but Christian Kirk here. He had a career year last year. He with Arizona, obviously went to Jacksonville now, but he's with Trevor Lawrence, who aired the ball out a ton. I just really like him this year to come out and produce. They paid him a lot. There's reports that Trevor Lawrence likes him. So, I'm going with Christian Kirk here. I love the upside of him. I think it's a good value here.
I agree with you. And I think, like you said, you're grabbing, kind of doing reaches, but I feel like we're kind of at the part now. You got your roster filled. You're kind of going for guys you want now. That you're grabbing your guys. And I feel like I said, are we talking about Kirk? I think that's a value pick, though, too, kind of. He's a wide receiver 1 on that roster right now. And you just got him at the last pick in the 9th round. That is big. Like, he could put up – I don't think it's out of question. I don't know if you guys agree with me, but I don't think it's out of question if he puts up wide receiver 30 numbers or better. I don't think that's, like, out of the question there.
No, I would wholeheartedly agree. I think he finished let's look here, wide receiver 28 last year. Yeah. 20 PPR, and I think he's potentially in a better situation than last year.
I would have to agree with you.
Yeah, so kind of going into my next pick here, I'm just going to on the high upside route. There's a lot of guys here. Robinson's probably a safer pick if he is active to begin the year. I could go with a backup QB, but on QB I have Justin Herbert. Isaiah Spiller is here as well. I like him, but I really like the upside of Sky Moore and the Kansas City offense. I think that produce. You're right now, but I think coming in, establish the rapport with Patrick. That could be lethal for fantasy, and we've seen what that's been like, and so I'll take my chances here.
Oh, yeah, I agree with you there. After the board came Mike Gesicki, Chase Claypool, Derek Carr. Isaiah Spiller, and then now Garrett on the clock. Derek Carr, the 10th round guy, I feel like that is a great value. That's
I agree.
Derek Carr has the best weapons he's ever had in his career. And I feel like he's kind of like on that peak of like a 31-year-old, a 30-year-old breakout season. I don't think that's like another question. I think he could put up very good numbers this year. So I like this. I think that's a good spot. So a good value. But Garrett, who are you feeling now?
So we're at the point in the draft where I start to kind of shoot for upside. We talked about some safe volume guys. I have 4 receivers already, but there is one guy that is staring me in the eyes right now.
I know who it is. I know who it is before you pick it, I think.
Oh, you do?
Is it Allen Lazard?
It's
The
Allen
hometown guy.
Lazard. And the reason why is, today I was listening to a different pod and they said 70% of people right now think that Allen Lazard will lead the Green Bay Packers in receiving this year. If he has that high of a chance, and I'm not saying the general consensus is right or wrong. I think that he is the vet on the team. He has shown he has the trust of Rodgers. If he ends up taking that role and being the top guy, I think he's going to see success this season. We haven't seen him necessarily turn that into crazy fantasy success yet, but I don't think it's without with a crazy thought for him to have something like, and this might sound like a crazy stat season, but he could have like 950 yards and like 14 touchdowns, and we'd be like, you know what? I could have saw that happening at the start of the season. It makes sense. Rodgers throws a lot of TDs. He's the outlet guy. He has to have a solid option in the red zone. Lazard could be the guy who steps into that crazy role, and it's worth taking your shot this late in the draft for a guy who could have that upside. Yes, I mean, it could be that he just stays as just a guy, but it's worth a shot this late in the draft.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I mean, Al Lazard, we saw put some nice games together in the last year. This might be biased because we're all Packer fans, but the same part is too is we've seen before when Devonta Adams would go out with injury, Allen Lazard became that guy for Aaron Rodgers. I think in 2020 it was a Saints game, if you guys remember that. He had like 6 catches, 120-some yards, and a touchdown. And then again in the playoff game against the Rams, Devonta Adams was getting shadowed by Jalen Ramsey most of the game, and Allen Lazard came out and put together a big game in that one as well. Looks like we lost Garrett here, Andrew. I don't see his photo anymore. We'll wait for Garrett to reestablish connection here before we move on with the next picks here. But, Andrew, how are you feeling about your team so far? Are you liking the way they shape up?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm feeling well balanced. I feel like I'm good on receivers now for the rosters that we have set up here. I got my 2 guys that on the bench, and Christian Kirk and Sky Moore, that I think could potentially propel into starting territory. I'm liking it a lot. My RB room is not the best here on the draft. I got Nick Chubb, James Conner, and Tony Pollard, but I think it's solid nonetheless. They'll produce. I think kind of my draft strategy for the rest of the draft here is to continue to be a little bit more balanced. So I'm looking at getting another RB. I'm looking at getting a backup tight end, especially since I didn't snag a top tier one. I'm looking at Zach Ertz as my starter. I think I could get someone else to fill in there. But yeah, feeling good so far.
All right, I see Garrett is back in. I'm sure we had a little technical difficulties there. But with that being said, Garrett, can you hear us? Okay. All right, so I'm going to restart the draft here, and I am back on the clock. I'm going to give you guys kind of my thoughts here. I have not taken a tight end yet. Kind of concerning. I have 5 good wide receivers, 3 running backs who I feel safe with, and a good quarterback. And so with that being said, I am finally going to dip into my tight end. And to be honest, I even thought about this guy last pick on the 9th round there. I thought it'd be a little bit of a reach, but I like his potential this year. I like the offense. and that's Albert O. I like the fact that he has a very, very high-powered offense he's in. So I'm going to dip into the Albert O pool here. We got some stuff going on with Garrett's cameras here. We got 2 Garretts in the chat now. And so I'm grabbing Albert O with my first pick. And then I'm kind of thinking, okay, I got 1 tight end. I feel like I'm going to probably grab one later on in the draft. I don't feel comfortable grabbing back-to-back here. But I got 3 running backs, and one of them is Melvin Gordon. So, like I said, I like Melvin Gordon. There's also a guy here I'm looking at who I really like. And I feel like Garrett talked about the other acquaintance of him. And that's kind of like he thinks he'll be the RB1. And I feel like this guy is going to be the RB1 on that team. And I'm going with Ronald Jones. I just feel like we've seen Ronald Jones be that guy in Tampa before. He's a great first and second down guy, a great power back kind of. But we haven't seen much of a receiving game from him, which I don't think we'll see a whole lot with the Chiefs now that they have Jerick McKinnon back and Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But I think he can be that guy on the first and second down. So I feel like that's a good guy to have for my RB4. Garrett, you need me to pause the draft here?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, we're getting a little feedback, Garrett. It sounds like your phone's getting your voicing from your computer. So.
Uh-oh. There we go. I think I got her now.
All right, so.
All right, sorry about that, guys.
That's all right.
All right, so Caleb Greb Jones, I kind of would have liked him to come back to me because right now I have 3 running backs, and I would love to shore up that position a little bit more. Kirk here is an interesting option. The fact that I waited on QB so long and ended up with Stafford. I'm happy with Stafford still. I like Gage here as a safe late receiver. Again, receiver is just so deep in this draft. But that being said, right now I'm looking at the running back position, and I like Pierce. Pierce is a guy who can step into a heavy workload. We talked a little bit at the start of the episode about potentially some camp battles, but I think he's going to take over that role and be the main dog. So I'm going to jump here and grab Pierce.
And with Garrett, you're talking about I want to touch base here. You talk about how deep this wide receiver room is. I feel like it's important to have your running back depth built up in your draft because I feel like there's going to be guys, regardless, on waivers, if you ever really need a wide receiver to really plug in. I feel like you can grab some scraps off waivers and slide them in. And Andrew, I see Russell Gage went before him here. And I know me and Garrett have talked about Russell Gage on this podcast before, and we're both big on Russell Gage this year. And so I was just curious, were you thinking about grabbing him there or not because you had 2 wide receivers right before that?
Yeah, I am really big on Gage, but I was not looking at getting him there. Just the way these rosters shake out, I have some other positions I need to go for. But yeah, no, I love Gage. I think he's going to be awesome to start the year. Not sure how he'll be once Godwin gets back. I love him to begin the year. So rounding up my team here, I'm looking at getting my RB4. And a backup tight end, maybe a backup quarterback as well. So looking at the board here, right at the top, we have Alexander Madison, and I think that Garrett and Caleb can both attest to this. I'm the guy that likes to snag the top handcuffs every year, and Alexander Madison is always on the top of that list. So I love that he came to me here, and especially as since I have an established starting lineup here. I like to snag these guys for the bench. They can come in handy later in the season. We've seen Dalvin Cook get hurt, and we've seen Alexander Madison come in and put up 20-point weeks almost consistently. So I'll go ahead and I'll stash Madison. This is also a good trade bait for later in the year as well.
Yes.
So I'll go ahead and I'll start with. So now I'm either looking at probably a backup tight end or a backup QB here. I think that a tight end is probably a better area for me to address since I have Justin Herbert as my starting QB. So looking at the board here, we have Irv Smith, who, didn't produce much last year, but he actually ended the year, pretty hot. We have Noah Fant, who actually has produced with Denver, and he'll have Drew Lock in Seattle now, but who knows Lock will even have the starting position after that camp battle. So there's also David Njoku, Tyler Higbee, Robert Tonyan. I think that I am going to potentially take a reach here. I'm not sure if you guys will agree with it. I'm going way down the board, and I think I'm going to grab Robert Tonyan here. A lot of vacated targets for the Packers. Obviously, this people might say it's a hometown pick, but 2 years ago we saw all those touchdowns that he caught. There's just a lot more targets available, and I think Robert Tonyan could maybe get back to that level, maybe somewhere between last year and the year before anyways, and be a valuable backup tight end. So I'll go with him.
I like that pick, Andrew, because Rodgers doesn't have a whole lot of people he can trust right now on that Rodgers, and roster. We all know Aaron likes guys that he can trust. He targets them. He gives them the targets. And Tonyan, we saw, was that guy 2 years ago in the red zone, 10 touchdowns. And now without Adams there's so much red zone targets that are gone. Adams has put up double-digit touchdowns for the past 3 years in a row. And it's kind of just good to see, not good to see, but if you're a fantasy owner of Robert Tonyan, you feel comfortable that he's going to get those balls thrown his way down there in the end zone. And I just want to touch thing. You said about Irv Smith last year, but I know what you were saying. You just had your ears mixed up. But Irv Smith was 2020. Andrew was probably talking about how he was good, and then towards the end of the year, because last year we unfortunately saw him go down with that preseason injury and never play all year. So
that's right.
So, Garrett, sorry I talked a little bit in your time here. You got about a minute here for your pick. Let me know if you need to pause or not. But who are you feeling here?
No, so the fact that this is full PPR, I am intrigued by Nyheim Hines right here. Season in, season out, we hear that their team just wants to find ways to get him involved. That being said, I think it's a classic you practice what you preach kind of situation. There's Jahan Dotson. He's intriguing, but our boy Tim Patrick got a smash that pick.
That is hilarious.
Falling too late.
I wasn't even looking.
So easy
I thought I could get him another round later, to be honest. That was Timmy P. There he goes.
Always forget where he is on the board, and it's like sitting here looking at guys like Gage, Landry, Rondale Moore, Jacoby Myers, MVS, Gallup, like Tyler Boyd. I think Tim Patrick's got just as good a shot to go past all those guys. Smash that pick.
I'm not going to lie here, guys. I am super jittery because there's a player I was hoping I could get way late down here in the draft. And he is the top available running back right now. And he has the potential to take over the running back room. And yes, he was a late round pick. Doesn't really have that draft capital when it comes to the rookie drafts. But Tyler Algier as my RB5, I think is great for me. That is a complete buy of upside in the 12th round. And I got a guy who could potentially, maybe even off the start, we might see him even become the RB1. But I think midway through the season, I think he's going to get his touches, don't you guys? I agree. He's got only, Cordell Patterson, who's 31 years old, and Damian Williams in front of him was 30 years old. So I feel like those guys could slow down a little bit, and it could be Algier's back room. So, and then going into here, I got, I don't think with a 12-team league, I don't think I'd need another quarterback, to be honest. I feel like Tom Brady's a safe one to have, so I don't think I'm going to grab another quarterback in this draft, maybe in the 15th round, but I feel like I can just grab one off waivers if I need a replacement guy. So I'm kind of going for value here, and I'm going to go for guys that, like I said, for upside. I got a tight end, Albert O. Don't feel comfortable about it, but I kind of talked about the draft strategy and grabbing, like, the double dipping with guys. And so I'm going to probably double dip here on my tight end. Yeah. You got David Njoku, Tyler Higbee, and Hayden Hurst, Gerald Everett as the top guys. And I feel like with the people, Andrew, he's got 2 tight ends now. Garrett, he's got a good one. Dawson Knox, he might grab one. But everybody else behind me mainly has 2 tight ends already. So I feel like I can wait, to be honest, and grab one of those guys later. So I'm probably going to dip into that wide receiver room again because there's a couple guys who really stick out to me. And the top one right away is Jahan Dotson. We've heard so much about him in minicamp right now. And there's question marks with Terry McLaurin's contract. And he could end up being the wide receiver 1 there. So I feel like the 13th round, I feel like it's a safe pick kind of for me and like the value there. So I'm going to go with Jahan Dotson. Garrett?
All right, so I think this is a good situation or a good opportunity to point out something. So right now, Caleb just made his third to last pick. We have 2 rounds after this, and this league has kickers and defenses. So depending on your league format, you might be forced to have to fill all positions. But other leagues, you can fill in bench spots first and then be forced later on into camp to go and fill that kicker, fill that defense spot. So if you're fine waiting on a defense or you don't care about grabbing a top one, I would recommend taking a shot at one of these other running backs, wide receivers, other positions, waiting to see how camp turns out and all these rumors start going if you draft a little bit sooner, or just waiting until right before the start of week 1, grabbing your kicker because kickers are a crapshoot anyway, grabbing your defense that might be a good streamer for the week, and then figuring it out later. So that being said, my pick is up, and Caleb was kind of right. I was kind of hoping. I've got Knox as my top tight end. I feel like I want to shore up that position a little bit. Looking around at the ones that are available, Higbee is up there right now. But honestly, I like Hurst where he's at in this position. He's kind of been moved around the league quite a bit. He's been in pretty good situations for the most part. I feel like he's been hyped up several times, but he's going into a situation with Cincinnati where I feel like he's going to have an opportunity to kind of slot in. We'll find out within the first few weeks how he's doing there, and then if anything, it's a late pick that I could feel comfortable with dropping him if I want to.
So I just paused the draft here. Sorry you got Hurst. Just kept everybody up. Before that, after my Hodson pick was Pickens, Marlon Mack, Justin Fields, David Njoku, and DJ Chark, and then Garrett grabbed Hurst and Tyler Higbee. And I just want to touch base. We didn't really talk about it earlier, but this, like Garrett said, it is a kicker and defensive draft. And I guess we didn't really talk about this in the strategies subject, but kind of the strategy I like to go with is I like to grab a lot of positional players right away, because you can easily stream defenses and kickers week to week. Use some of that fab money on that stuff. Besides, unless you get one of these really, really top defenses, which we've seen in the past have good weeks. But we're not really here to talk to you guys about today about drafting kickers and drafting defenses. That's kind of just boring. So we're gonna kind of go through and just pick guys who we like at these ADPs, and then. But probably what we would do if we were in this scenario, probably end up waiting through camp, dropping 2 guys, grabbing a kicker, grabbing a defense. So I feel like that's probably what you guys were all thinking too, Garrett and Andrew. I'm sure you guys are on the same page there. So just kind of wanted to put that out there so everybody knew what we were talking about. Then we have our first kicker, though, came off the board there. Devonta Parker, Justin Tucker. And he is the one kicker who I feel like you're safe grabbing almost every year. If we wanted to really dig into kickers, I feel like he's a safe guy.
Yep. And another kicker I like too. I don't want to get too deep into it. I like Evan McPherson. He kind of ended the year hot, and he was a stud too. So I think if I would potentially look at him for a kicker, but the scope here is to look more into positional players. So I'm looking at grabbing a backup QB now. It's been a long time since I drafted Justin Herbert. So one high upside guy I like here, I talked about him earlier when I was talking about Christian Kirk, but Trevor Lawrence has fallen down here. Ton of volume. Obviously, top pick last year. He's got a ton of upside. And I like the opportunity, if Christian Kirk gets hot and Trevor Lawrence gets hot, maybe I could stack those 2 guys and package them in a trade potentially. So looking at a backup QB spot, I think Trevor Lawrence is a pretty awesome pick here. So I'm going to go ahead and stack. So now here I have some options. I have 4 RBs. I have 2 mid-tier tight ends. So I think I'm pretty well set on receiver. Since I have 5 receivers. So looking at either an RB or the tight end room, Gerald Everett's available. Evan Engram, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas is getting a bit older now, but I like Gerald Everett here. He's a freak athlete, as we've seen, and he was great with the Rams. Now he's with the Chargers. Looking at the RB room, there's J.D. McKissick, good guy in PPR, good fill-in role, but in my mind, not a ton of upside. Raheem Mostert, I hate Miami backfield. Just kind of looking through some of these RBs available. I think that what I am going to go with here, and I'm going to stick to my mantra that I touched on a little bit earlier. I'm going to go ahead and steal Jamal Williams just because I like the handcuff and the potential upside later on. If we're to go down, we can see Jamal Williams jump into a huge role. He's been great with the Packers in the past. He actually put up a couple big weeks at the beginning of last year as well. So we've seen him be a little bit injury prone, but if he jumps into an RB1 role, he'll produce. And so I just like the upside there.
There's Mcpherson, McKissick, Buffalo's defense, Tampa Bay's defense, and back to you, Garrett.
Yeah, so I think now we're probably going to be seeing a lot of the auto drafters start taking the defense and kickers to fill out their rosters. Right now, I mean, I'm going to continue with that strategy I talked about earlier. I'm filling out with running backs, receivers, and other positions. I only have one quarterback. Really, the only options I'd be interested in would be taking a shot at a guy like Mac Jones or Zach Wilson. The other guys that are out there, Tannehill, Matt Ryan, Jameis Winston, I mean, they're backups that are out there, but they're as good as a streamer. They're not really a level up kind of guy that has an opportunity to step into a big role. So Wilson is intriguing for me. But I think what I would like to do here is I would like to go and grab a running back, and I have one picked out. His name is Khalil Herbert. Herbert is the backup to the starter in Chicago, which, if we watch the opportunity there open up a little bit more, Montgomery has had stretches kind of on and off that he's been just a bona fide stud. Herbert walked in last year, saw some good volume in a few games that he started. He showed that he has some talent. So if the opportunity arises, he could level up and be a guy that I can plug and play potentially for a week or two if need be.
I agree there. So back to me. Here's my last two picks of the draft. Like I said, I'm not going to grab quarterback or kickers and defense because that'll be kind of boring for you guys for us to talk about them. So I'm going to dig into two guys, and like I said, I only have one tight end, and I'm going with my approach here. I'm doubling down on late tight ends, and there's one guy who I was hoping would keep falling, and I see he's still there, and we kind of talked about him in camp, and that's Austin Hoover. We've seen Ryan Tannehill before give the ball to his tight end. We've seen Jonnu Smith put up a big season in 2020, and now there is not a lot of guys there. A.J. Brown's gone. I got Robert Woods, which kind of stinks. I'm gonna have the two Titans there. But Treylon Burks was the rookie drafted there. But otherwise, between those three, I don't know if there's much competition between Hooper, Woods, and Burks for other guys getting the ball. Maybe Kyle Phillips, the other rookie they drafted. We've heard some stuff about them using Dontrell Hilliard in the passing game a little bit, but I think Hooper's a safe pick and a good tight end to roster. I think we'll learn more about him in camp, and I think that's a good pick for me.
Yeah, I like that. I like Hooper here. Caleb.
And then for my last pick, I am looking in. I got 6 wide receivers, so I'm probably not going there. I got good depth there. I got 5 running backs, good there. 2 tight ends. I do not have a backup quarterback. I said I probably won't draft one just because I think like Brady's just a safe guy to hold, and it's 12-team PPR. So I don't think there's a whole bunch of guys there I need. But there's, like I said, I do have 6 wide receivers, and this is more of just a value pick to me and kind of a wait and hold situation. And this wide receiver I talked about kind of earlier on in one of our episodes, and it's Jalen Tolbert. The reason I'm picking him is because we don't know what's going to happen with Michael Gallup. he could end up on the year on the PUP list to start. So we could see Tolbert come into this offense, a very pass-heavy offense, like to move the ball a lot, and we could see him have a whole bunch of targets thrown his way right away. So I kind of want to hold him, see what's going on through camp. But if anything were to happen, like where I need a kicker, a guy, he'd probably be my first cuts. So I'm grabbing Tolbert here. We just lost Garrett again. He's having a little technical difficulties tonight. So I will pause the draft right now, and we'll kind of just talk and wait for Garrett to join in here. There he's back already. Perfect. So, Garrett, who you think are your last pick before we end this all?
All right. Back in, I would like to, early on in the draft, I've taken plenty of receivers. I have 6 of them already. I've taken my shots at running back, but I would like to grab another backup here just in case, see how camp rolls out. My pick is going to be Daryl Williams. And the reason is that if Connor goes down, we could see an opportunity arise for Daryl Williams where, all of a sudden he's the de facto number 1. There's no other options. They didn't do much to shore up that backfield this summer. So grab him, stash him, see how it works out, see how the first few weeks of camp go, or see how the start of the season goes and what the opportunities look like. But Daryl Williams was a good pass catching back last year, and he made the most of his opportunities with Kansas City.
All right, Andrew.
All right, so I'm last pick of the draft here, Mr. Irrelevant. So I am kind of looking at my team. I feel pretty complete. I have 3 starting RBs. I'm stashing Alexander Madison and Jamal Williams. At this point, this pick really doesn't matter, right? Because we could kind of dig into the free agency after this or whatever. So I'm going to continue with the stashing strategy I have here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to nab Odell Beckham here in case he signs on. We could see something like last year where he ends up with a new team. Maybe he's back with the Rams, and if he puts up those numbers late in the season, that'd be huge for me. So, snagged Odell.
That is a very good value. We saw Odell put up some good numbers last year when he went to the Rams, and like you said, that's a kind of. And the thing is too, what we didn't really talk about in this draft that we do. There's also a place for 2 IR spots. So if Odell signs, it's kind of, you just got to steal because you can throw him on your IR. And yes, we know that the whole Tommy Pham situation about stashing guys for IR is kind of a no-go, but according to him anyways, where I think it's more, you could use it type deal. So I think having OBJ on your IR and having him come in for you in October, possibly November is big. So I really like that pick as your last pick of the draft, like you said. And like I said, you can probably store him on IR right away. So with this here, kind of just go over what we did again. I was drafting from the 1 spot, Garrett from the 7, and Andrew from the 12. And I'm just going to go through each team here and let you guys know again, kind of redo what we did for draft. So I had Jonathan Taylor with my first pick, Mike Evans, T. Higgins, Breece Hall, Michael Pittman, Tom Brady, Darnell Mooney, Melvin Gordon, Robert Woods, Albert O, Ronald Jones, Tyler Algier, Jahan Dotson, Austin Hooper, and Jalen Tolbert. Garrett, you want to go through your team there?
Yeah, so I started receiver heavy. I went Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, then followed it up with Elliott, DK Metcalf, Travis Etienne, A.J. Dillon, Rashad Bateman, and finally got my tight end and quarterback in Knox and Stafford, Alan Lazard, Damian Pierce, Tim Patrick, Hayden Hurst, Khalil Herbert, and Daryl Williams. So I ended up with 6 receivers and 6 running backs, which, nice and balanced there, a good mix of early and late. And I kind of went late approach on tight ends and quarterback.
All right. Andrew?
Yeah, so I kind of started off with a pretty balanced strategy. So I went Diggs, Nick Chubb, James Conner, Justin Herbert, Marquise Brown, Mike Williams, Zach Ertz, and Tony Pollard. At that point, I felt like I had established a pretty strong starting lineup and felt pretty good about where I was at. So started to take a stab on some flyers, some potentially high upside guys. So went and got Christian Kirk, Sky Moore, Alexander Madison, who is the best handcuff probably in fantasy. We've seen him have a couple big games every year. So if I could get a late season game out of him where he puts up 20, that could be huge. Robert Tonyan as my backup tight end, Trevor Lawrence, Jamal Williams, and Odell Beckham. Both of those are potential. If the situation gets right, they could
I
produce.
just want to point out here, Andrew's team has 2 big stacks too. And if you guys are interested in like stacks and that strategy, where you know either get your tight end quarterback combo or tight end wide receiver combo, Andrew has 2. You know, Lawrence and Kirk are kind of question marks, but for sure one solid stack and another one on his bench who could be another solid stack depending on the week. So say like Andrew feels comfortable and the Jaguars are playing like the Jets or Texans or something like that, like a weaker defense, that would kind of be a stack matchup he could not possibly start even depending on how good Lawrence takes that step. But just kind of a thing to look at there too. So.
One thing I want to say about stacks that, you know, this isn't necessarily performance related. Stacks are just more fun. When you're watching football on Sunday and your quarterback throws a long touchdown and you got the stack, it is a double whammy and you are straight electric. It is so much more exciting and, you know, it's fun. I mean, you do have your eggs in a little bit more of one basket. You might have not as much balance or opportunity for balance, but honestly, your upside week to week, you can really hit some high highs.
Yes, I would agree. And with that, I think that will end our mock draft here, guys. Sorry, it took a lot longer than we kind of expected, but I hope you guys enjoyed and stayed through it all. If you guys have any questions ever, feel free to reach out to us. Garrett and I will link our Twitters below our Twitter bios. Andrew, if you want, we can link yours too, kind of if they have any questions on how your strategies are, if you feel comfortable with that. But
yeah, absolutely.
With that being said, we are next week, Garrett, we're going to be covering divisional breakdowns, correct? So we're going to be kind of going through divisions, guys we like, guys we're going to avoid on teams, kind of just breaking them down into smaller sections for you guys. So it's not just one long episode. We're kind of split it up at times, so you feel like who we like from each division, and kind of guys we don't like from each division. Put it in simpler terms, but with that, Garrett, you want to end us out here?
No, I don't have too much else. Thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And thanks, Andrew, for jumping on.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you guys for the opportunity to be on. I'm loving it.
Awesome. Have a good one, guys.
Yep. Sorry, Garrett, kept you late.